Well, because there is another force involved in this whole phenomenon. And this is, the crux of my argument in Closer Encounters, particularly the end of the book, chapter 7 of Closer Encounters. I discuss how there is how can one put it? I suppose a truly non-human superintelligence, a superorganism that is behind a wide range of close encounter phenomena, and that is of a different order than these Nordic UFO pilots and the little gray robots that they use, the gray androids that they use for all their dirty work, like their abductions and so on and so forth. There's another type of entity involved in close encounters, which has a trickster mentality. It's an expression of the trickster archetype. And it's capable in a very shamanic form. It's capable of manifesting itself through all manner of disguises, of wearing many masks and producing different types of encounters that ultimately have as their modus operandi, as their aim or telos, to catalyze further human evolution. So there's a battle here, which I outline in Closer Encounters. I mean, this is actually the central thesis of the book. There is a battle between overlords who intend to maintain their control over humanity and to keep humanity within the confines of a preconceived notion of what properly ordered human society ought to be. They have a fixed idea of human nature and a hierarchical conception of human nature, similar to that you'd find in the Vedas or in Aristotle even, where there are people who are like basically legitimate elites, and then there's all kinds of rungs going down through laborers up to natural slaves. You find this in Aristotle and you find it in the Vedas. And they have this kind of a conception of human society, and they intend to reestablish that and reassert it, okay, to basically go back to the kind of feudal order that they once had on this planet. And by the way, it's interesting that Grusch uses this term in his interview. He says that, or his exact words, he said that one of the reasons for this secrecy was that, what did he say? Feudalistic dominance, right? Feudalistic dominance is one of the reasons for why this technology is being kept from the human population at large, because these entities don't want us to achieve technological parity with them, because if we do, we'd be capable of defending ourselves against them, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, this brings us to the question of the various factions in the deep state.
Yeah.
So, okay. Clearly, there's a group of people who, since the one has to say, because they were retrieving technology from Nazi Germany and they were bringing technical expertise over here through Project Paperclip, one has to say it goes back to the 1940s. But in earnest, at these various defense contractors beginning in the 1950s, as was briefly covered in mainstream media at that time, these people have been reverse engineering this technology. And so we're talking about generals of the Air Force, Army at that time, and admirals of the Navy, and executives at top defense contractors, who over the course of decades basically developed what you could call a shadow government, a very deep state that has diverged from the public sphere of science and from the norms of human society to such an extent that you could call this organization a breakaway civilization. It's world of meaning, its constellation of significance, the way it sees the cosmos, the type of social organization that it's developed on a small scale is so radically different from, that of the United States or any other country in the world, that it really represents a separate civilization and one that's broken away at this point from the civilizations of Earth. And it has basically its own economy and industry, which were developed through misappropriation of US taxpayer money and also through running the international drug cartel, frankly. Okay? These are the people who actually run the international drug cartel, using assets inside the CIA and so on and so forth, not necessarily with the approval of the director of the CIA, but using assets in various intelligence agencies to get black budget funding for themselves.
Could we name any names as far as living people right now who are part of this club that you are sure are part of this club?
I actually don't want to do that. And I'm going to make it clear to you why I don't want to do that.
All right.
So you have this group of people, and they're what you might call the old guard. And these are the people who, beginning in the 1980s, were rumored to be members of Majestic 12, MJ12, Magic, Majestic 12. There were these documents that were supposedly leaked in the 1980s. Well, I mean, they were leaked, but there's been a lot of question about their authenticity. And long story short, I think they're forgeries. But I think they are forgeries meant to be part of a disinformation operation to cover up the existence of an actual group like this. In other words, disinformation is you mix some truth with lies to muddy the water. And I think that's what went on with MJ12. There is such a group. It's not necessarily called MJ12 or Majestic or anything like that, but it's a group with a very kind of secular, scientific mindset, very ruthless, pragmatic, calculative, and involving military and intelligence types and corporatists. And these people, I would call them the old guard. And they're the ones who, for the longest time, have not wanted any kind of disclosure and have been responsible for massive disinformation campaigns to drown any leaks that have taken place, right? Now, separately from this group, you have another group who are at least as old. They go back to basically U.S. government surveillance of Jack Parsons. I dedicated Closer Encounters to Jack Parsons. And Jack Parsons was involved in occult rituals together with Aleister Crowley and others, which, to make a very long story short, I think were engaging this trickster entity, which I discussed earlier. They were, Parsons and his associates in Thelema, and the people who carried out the Babylon working, they were attempting to engage with this truly non-human intelligence or superhuman intelligence that's behind manifestations of, really bizarre entities like, these mantids that people see, and men in black who are not government agents, but appear to be some kind of like ectoplasmic materialization or something.
And very dorky too, from what I'm getting. Weird. Like they're very weird fellas.
Well, there's a humor to the types of manifestations.
Yeah. Well, real quick, that's what I was asking you earlier. Wait, real quick, Neil. This is what I was asking you earlier, Jason, and I didn't really get an answer to that question, which was when these generals or other people in the know were meeting some of these Nordic types, did the Nordic types have any sense of humor? Could they enjoy a Mel Brooks movie? I'm trying to figure out exactly what is the emotional intelligence of these beings as opposed to just their tech.
I don't want to paint them all with a broad brushstroke, but I think that many of them are lacking in a sense of humor. And that to the extent that they have one, it's a very Schadenfreude sense of humor, the German, taking pleasure in other people's misery, finding other people's misery funny. There's a real sadistic streak of cruelty in these Nordics. Although there's a significant contingent of them that are broken away from the control group and that are basically, let's just say it's possible for us to look to them as potential allies in any future confrontation with these other Nordics. And I can